Okay, so what I want to tell you about life is that it's like a speech. It's very much like you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed, and you're already aware that you're going to be in front of somebody else. What you do, what you say, your actions, decisions, behaviors are all going to be observed by your audience the rest of your life. All day, all night, next morning, same thing. I want to tell you a story about how I came to understand fear, because I suffered with fear for a long time. Most of my childhood and into my military career, I'd struggled with fear, and I didn't realize it at the time until later in life when the military demand for me to perform became more intense. And so I found myself on stage giving briefings like this one, and I realized then that I wasn't any good at this. And there was a reason for that. And it wasn't just because I didn't have the skills, I couldn't talk, or I didn't know what I was saying. It was because fear was affecting how I presented myself, how I reacted to my audience, and so forth. And then later in my career, as I pursued killing that fear of public speaking, I got myself into all kinds of different environments, different speaking engagements, and different levels of responsibility when it comes to talking and articulating ideas, and being a leader in general. And what I found is I began to, over time, work through some of the stage fright problems that I had. Fidgeting, playing with a wedding ring, clicking a clicker, playing with things in my pocket, all kinds of things like that that I did to try and release some of that fear while presenting. And then there were other things that I did. As I went further along in my career, I pursued the stage to continually fight this stage fright thing, this fear thing that had a hold of me. And so I signed up to be a tech school instructor. And I thought to myself, if I'm in front of an audience every day, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, when all the students go back to the dorm, then eventually this fear thing is just going to go away. I'm going to have busied myself working on it for so long that I won't have a problem with it anymore. And to some degree, that was true. To some degree, I found that I became more and more comfortable in everyday situations, everyday teaching sessions, and it became a routine. But what I didn't know at the time was really what fear is. All I knew is that I didn't like it. I didn't like me with it. But I didn't know what it was until much later in life. I had left the technical training environment and went back to being a non-commissioned officer in charge of a section. And then I moved on to do that again in another section. And in the meantime, I got promoted into the senior NCO tier and became a senior leader within the military. And I thought at that point, man, now I've made it. I'm part of this club. I'm part of being associated. And I'm one of these people I've admired my whole career. And when I got into that space and I got behind the doors that were closed to me before, into the rooms where they had staff meetings, they talked about real business and leadership stuff, I realized that a lot of those guys were sitting in those meetings having the same fears that I had been working on all that time. And so even though I was a fresh senior leader, I was in some ways more advanced because I took the time to look at the fear and say, I don't like this, and get off of me. Get that fear thing out of here. Stay away. I don't want you to be part of my existence. I don't want you to limit my success and the way I do things and how far I can go as a leader, how far I can go as a human being. And so while I was working on all that, as a public speaker, it ended up rolling into my own life. My own leadership and lifestyle were also boosted by this work I did to delete fear. But I still didn't know what fear was until I heard a sermon by Charles Spurgeon. And then I don't remember the whole sermon or what the sermon was really about. The sermon itself kind of didn't have an effect because what I had been dealing with my whole life up to that point was fear. And I knew it was fear, but I didn't know what fear was until I read or heard this. Charles Spurgeon said, "Fear, white-faced fear, is everywhere. it slips itself into the bed sheets. And he continued on, and that's the phrase that I remember. It slipped into the most intimate place in your dwelling, in your home, the bed sheets. Fear is in there. It's deep. And when I read the rest, and then I took some time to think on that concept, that idea, he also said, fear is like an old family friend who you've invited in and you take care of and you treat them with hospitality. And I just got to thinking, is that what I've been doing my whole life? I've got this freeloader in my house. I've invited him in, and this is what I get. Somebody who stays there, eats all my food, doesn't buy groceries, doesn't pay rent, doesn't mow the lawn, doesn't help me in any way. Matter of fact, while fear is in my house, what's he doing? Hey, don't go talk to them. You don't know what's going to happen when you talk to them. They might say something mean to you. They might have an emotional explosion because you had something to say. So fear is there telling me things that are limiting me. They're bringing me down. They're changing who I am. They're changing how I interact with the world. And that's why I say fear is a freeloader. What do you do with a freeloader? At some point, you have to identify this guest in my home is actually not welcome here. I don't want you here. And sometimes it's hard because the guest in your home is a family member. You know, there's some other association to it that gives you some kind of comfort, which is deceiving. And fear does this. It'll put you in a situation where you freeze. And then everything kind of goes wrong for a while until that situation is over. And as soon as you step away, fear goes, you're good now. Go ahead, you can be cool now. All the while saying that happened to you because you're afraid. While fear is there just backing out and saying, nope, nothing to see here. I wasn't part of this. I wasn't here. It was all you. You're the one with the fear. You're the one with these issues. You're the one with these limitations. And so fear remains a freeloader in your house. He stays there inside you. And he waits for the next opportunity to interfere with what you're doing. And so a couple of things fear does. Number one, he targets your personality. So you have to look at it this way. The guy's in your home, he's a freeloader. He's not you. He's living there, but he's not you. So when he talks and you think it's you, you're wrong. Fear needs to be viewed as an outside personality making advances at you to get you to do things, or you to not do things in some cases. So fear targets your personality. When you get on stage or when you go to work and you're a leader of any kind, or you have a task to do that others are involved with and you have to tell them what to do, fear goes, hey, you probably don't want to say that. You probably don't want to do this. You probably want to look a certain way. You probably want to be professional. You probably want this. You probably want that. And make sure that when you do talk to them, you yell, because they won't listen to you if you don't yell. That's what fear does. He messes with your personality. He messes with your own identity, how you see yourself, how you think you should be. But none of that's true. None of that's true at all. And when people say, just be yourself, we don't know what that means because we're listening to something that's outside of ourselves. Fear is making us think we're something we're not. And so until we can get rid of fear, our personality won't be free. And then the next thing that fear does is he targets your power and your authority. So let's say you're in a workspace and you have your peers and you all do the same job. And someone else goes, hey, I need you guys go over here and take care of this. And all of you coworkers go take care of that. And then one day, that guy moves up to another position and they decide that you're the best of your peers and they promote you to that position. And now you're no longer one of them. Now you're the guy that shows up and says, hey, I need you guys to go do this. But what's fear do? You don't have the authority to do that. Yesterday, you were their peer. They're not going to listen to you. So he takes away your identity, and then he starts taking away your authority. The idea that you can tell people things that they need to do or make requests that will be valid, right? And your power is gone, so your confidence is gone, your credibility is down, And then you have all these limitations when you go into that space and try to ask people to do things or tell people to do things. And that's when he starts saying stuff like, you have to yell if they're going to do what you ask. Don't ask, tell them. Don't ask them. Don't get their involvement. Don't get their buy-in. Just tell them what to do. And so we get these environments in the workspace that are toxic in certain ways. Sometimes they're not so toxic, but they're just dysfunctional because fear was there, messing with your personality, your power, and your authority. So if you don't like what you're hearing about fear and you're internalizing what I'm talking about, I have one question for you. In life, or in speech, leadership, and lifestyle, what's the cost of doing nothing about the freeloader who's living with you? What's the cost?